A lot can be said for John Carpenter's filmography. Like, when you talk to me about his filmography, I'll tell you what I think his best movies are. And admittedly, you know, this movie that we're about to talk about is always one that I forget to say. I'll say, of course, you got to talk about Halloween. You got to talk about The Thing. And one of my personal favorites, John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. But whenever people say, oh yeah, what about In the Mouth of Madness? I always have to stop myself and say, oh, of course, that has to be a top 5 film. Now, John's 90s movies, well, the box office in America wasn't that kind to him. Some of my favorite movies that he's done, like Memoirs of an Invisible Man, I don't even think anybody in America went to go see it. It's a movie that I love talking about, and most people look at me like I have 3 eyes. Maybe it's just because they hate Chevy Chase, or maybe it's because they have no idea John Carpenter made it. So much so that I know people that say, oh, I'm a huge John Carpenter guy, and I mention it to them, and they look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm already getting off track. Maybe one day we'll talk about Memoirs. But we are here today to talk about his 1995 New Line Cinema entry, In the Mouth of Madness. Now, this finally comes to us to 4K UHD, albeit from Arrow. It's interesting. A lot of these titles, they're swapping. They're going from company to company, and it's something we're seeing more of. A lot of titles that might have been Blu-rays from Scream Factory are now ending up on Kino Lorber. Vice versa. It's all over the place. Arrow is snatching up Warner Brothers titles with this new deal they have. So, admittedly, I guess this isn't that much of a surprise when you think about it. It makes total sense because guess who owns New Line Cinema? You named it. Warner Brothers. When I first watched In the Mouth of Madness, I was convinced this was an H.P. Lovecraft tale that I haven't heard of. I don't think it's actually H.P. Lovecraft, but boy does it have the DNA of it. So much so that I'm sure that Charles Band, when he saw this movie, he was like, drats. We should have made a movie just like this. We've got this author, Sutter Kane, this guy that writes these horror novels that have swept the nation. I even love this little joke that Julie Carmen's character says in here about, oh, even Stephen King. None of them can outsell Kane. This author, Sutter Kane, goes missing. Sam Neill's character has to find this guy. He's some sort of insurance investigator. And Julie Carmen's character, who's kind of like the editor for these books, comes along. What I love about this film is it does remind me of like a Halloween 3. You know, most of these movies in horror films, they're led by younger people. Now, I'm not here to say that I thought Julie Carmen was old at all. She was probably in her 30s at best, which now I definitely think is very young. But my point is, I love the fact that this horror movie is not led by 20, 21-year-olds. You know, it's different. I love that. You know, there's a time and place for that stuff, of course, but that's what makes this movie unique to me. You know, Sam Neill was coming off the huge success of Jurassic Park. There was even a story told in this that when Sam Neill showed up to the first day to start filming In the Mouth of Madness, he was swarmed by thousands of people because Jurassic Park had just come out, and he was unaware that it was going to be some sort of a big hit. Sam Neill sounds like the coolest, chillest guy who does not take his fame seriously at all, or even pays attention to it. I mean, the fact that he didn't know that Jurassic Park was a hit is pretty hysterical. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, though, because I did learn about that in this release. So interesting to me every time I watch In the Mouth of Madness, which admittedly is not as often as I probably should, once every other year or so, I forget how insane some of the special effects stuff is in this. I always think about In the Mouth of Madness being this movie that has this, you know, great performance from Sam Neill freaking out and losing his mind, but good God, in a way, I almost feel like In the Mouth of Madness can be perceived as like the 90s The Thing for John Carpenter, just in a small sense, not in a grand sense, but when you see some of the designs that Nicotero and his team made in this film, it's effing wild. Some of this stuff cannot be explained. You remember that grandma that was in the movie Happy Gilmore? Jesus Christ, what happens to her in this film is insane. It will ruin your perception of that woman who played Happy Gilmore's grandma. It's crazy. This is at a time where clearly CGI stuff was coming into the fold. Like I said, when Sam Neill came on to do this film, Jurassic Park had just come out, which probably changed the world in terms of special effects, computer graphics stuff anyway. But my point is, the tide was definitely turning. But not In the Mouth of Madness. This film is all old school. In-house practical effects, a lot of optical stuff done the old school way, probably a little bit of matte painting stuff, and just the K&B guys going nuts, creating designs that look insane and probably could have fit into a movie like The Thing. This is such a great movie. I don't even know if you would call it an underrated film at this point, because most John Carpenter fans, they know it. A lot of horror fans know it. Maybe you could consider it that. To me, it's just a damn good horror movie at this point. And is it John's best 90s horror film? I think if I asked 10 people, probably 8 of them would say it's In the Mouth of Madness. What a movie this is, and it's a movie that just has such a great style, but there's always things about this that remind me so much of John Carpenter's works. One of them is his simple cinematography. Now, his movies always look great, but John is a fan of that smooth, long shot, letting things play out, letting the actors act. Watching his movies sometimes feel like watching a play, because you're actually seeing a performance go on throughout a 20-30 second shot without a bunch of cuts. That's something I really like about John's film. His movies are easy to watch. All in all, guys, In the Mouth of Madness is a must-own movie in any format, however you need to watch it. If you're a John Carpenter fan, if you're a horror fan, and if you're a 90s fan, there's no excuse. In the Mouth of Madness is a guaranteed successful watch for anybody. One of the best performers of the 90s, Sam Neill. One of the best directors in horror, John Carpenter. Did I mention Julie Carmen of Fright Night 2 fame? Julie Carmen is fantastic. As we've said, this is the 4K release. Now, I do have a previous release for this, and of course we have to talk about this. This is the Scream Factory Blu-ray for In the Mouth of Madness. Now, before we get into the actual physicality of this release, let's talk about the picture quality. Here's what I'll say. This movie looks absolutely effing fantastic. This is a negative 4K restoration in 4K Dolby Vision with HDR. Now, this Blu-ray from 2018 is also a 4K remaster from the original film elements. Now, does this mean that it's taken from the negative or the inner positive? The truth is, I actually don't know that based off of the wording of this original film elements. I would assume the negative, but it could be the inner positive. It's just one of those things. Here's what I will say. The jump from this to this isn't as extreme as other stuff you might see on Blu-ray to 4K. Especially with Scream Factory's earlier library, a lot of their stuff I think was just studio masters that are 1080p, and they look really good. This release looks fantastic, and the reality is, if you have this release and you put it on today, it will be still very competitive to the way releases look nowadays in 2025. I'm not going to dog the look of that Scream Factory Blu-ray whatsoever. I still think it's competitive and looks great. This, of course, looks a little better, and the reality is it should. It shouldn't be a surprise, and it shouldn't be the other way around. At the end of the day, this should look better than this. My point is, don't expect the gigantic gap from picture quality that you'll see from other stuff that goes from Blu-ray to 4K. Arrow didn't actually have a lot of work to do in beefing up this release that much more, but they did do an interview in here that was absolutely fantastic and made this an eye-opening experience when learning about this film, which I'll talk about just in a second. So with that said, guys, of course this looks absolutely phenomenal and probably the best it can. This release itself has some great artwork. I will show you guys this. I think this looks fantastic. This image right here, guys, is great. I'll get you guys a good shot of that. You've got this serpent around this big cathedral with the book in there. Really, really cool. This is a chunky box release of In the Mouth of Madness. There you guys go. Do you read Sutter Kane? And there's all that. We'll talk about the features in a second. But yeah, very, very cool. I love the look of this. And I actually did an Instagram post, and a lot of people actually said, wow, they did a great job on the artwork for that. And I do agree. I think this is great artwork. Alright, guys, so the one thing I've noticed, this is now a standard with Arrow stuff, is you do get these kind of slip covers around the hard boxes. And then the release itself, it's the only thing I wish that Arrow would do would be maintain that pop and color that the slipcover says. Oh, you can clearly see the difference. The boxes are matte and a little bit faded, and I don't know why they do that. I guess it's cheaper. I just wish it would hold that color, because the color on the slip is fantastic, and this gets a little bit duller. So, just my opinion. Now in here you get your case. Now before I flip this, you can have that original poster art that looks like the book with the face and everything, but the artwork on the inside right here is actually different than what's on the cover of this, and I was surprised, like, oh, we get even more artwork on here, which I might actually keep it to that, but I'll show you what you do get on the reverse. As you guys know, that poster, you know, that artwork, which you all know. So I might actually keep it on this. I actually like that. We do have our card in here. Let's see what movie's on the other side. Evil Dead Rise. What are they going to do with this film? I really don't know. And this is a one-disc release just on 4K. Obviously, the Blu-ray, I believe, still might be in print from Scream Factory, which is why you can't get the Blu-ray with this. That's my guess. You get your poster, and the poster is cool because it's actually different than the poster art for the theatrical. You get this. Now, this is amazing. I might actually want to hang this up. Sutter Kane in the Mouth of Madness. Look at that artwork. Absolutely fantastic artwork. How cool is that? That's amazing. And then the other side has the cover of the box set. Very, very cool. And of course you get this great booklet. And it's a thick book, actually. This book is very, very thick. A lot of writing, a lot of pictures and behind-the-scenes stuff in here. Super cool. So, credit for the size of this book. This book is a lot thicker than the usual Arrow book. You could just see how much pages is in that. So very, very nice. Guys, I talked earlier about the special features on this release. Now, we'll look at the listing on here, and I'll basically tell you that all the previous stuff from the Scream Factory release, like the interview with the guy who played Sutter Kane, the interview with Julie Carmen, all that is on here as well. They were able to port over and license those features, which is fantastic. But the great thing about this is there's a few new interviews. Now, one of these interviews is an interview with Sandy King Carpenter, which is John Carpenter's wife. This is a new interview, and it was absolutely fantastic. She gave an interview that was so good. It went over the entire making of the film and was so enjoyable to watch. And she actually said something, I don't want to spoil too much about what she said in terms of her and John making that film. I believe they were already married at that point. But she said something that blew my mind. I always thought about John's 90s films as being bombs. But she actually said that In the Mouth of Madness was a huge hit overseas. Europe and other countries, they loved this film, and this film made a ton of money, but in America, nobody went to go see it. I guess the landscape was different overseas, but there's a lot of new features on here. They even have these new kind of, you know those features that they've been doing where they get these people to read basically their reviews while the video plays? They actually did something cooler. There's new features on here that you guys can see where it's these, you know, these movie reviewers and movie analysts, and they actually film them talking about the movie and their thoughts on it, which made it a much more enjoyable experience. So they definitely beefed up this release even more. They didn't have a whole lot of work to do because, like I said, Scream Factory did a great job on that Blu-ray, but I do appreciate that Arrow went the extra effort to give us even more stuff on here. So the question is, do you upgrade, do you not upgrade? The reality is this. The picture quality on these are both fantastic. Sure, this one's a little better, and it should be. It's a 4K in HDR with Dolby Vision. This still looks really good. At the end of the day, though, I'm going to say that, yeah, I think the 4K from Arrow is great because it does beef up the release even more, and physically it gives fans something more to get their hands on, with the chunky box, with the nice booklet, with the cool Sutter Kane poster. Really, really cool. So, you know, there you have it, guys. Obviously, think it over, look at your options, weigh what's important to you with this, but I do love this release of In the Mouth of Madness from Arrow Video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Really cool movie above anything else. If you haven't seen it, you're welcome. What an amazing film that apparently was actually really successful. But, you know, nobody told us that, including New Line telling John or Sandy that when this movie came out. So, yeah, watch that interview. It's a great interview with John's wife, Sandy King Carpenter. What an amazing woman, too, and a great producer. Thank you guys for watching, and enjoy the movie. Huge, giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind-the-scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.